Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're asking, where is this economic crisis everybody is saying is the exigent reason underlying the need for this so-called digital wallet? Let me jump in here. Thought of making this video after reading a recent article from the Thai Examiner. That's thaiexaminer.com. Article is titled, First Quarter GDP Growth Surprises Analysts Based on Higher Tourism and Consumer Spending Growth. I was talking to a friend of mine here about this, and the whole framing of this is the weirdest thing we've ever seen. This should be a jubilant sort of announcement, and actually Thai Examiner does a pretty good job of being pretty even-handed with this overall topic. But I've noticed in other publications and things, all kinds of weird verbiage being used, like over-tourism. I'd never heard of over-tourism before. Man, prior to COVID, all anybody cared about was tourism. There was no such thing as over-tourism. But again, these good things are being weirdly framed as sort of bad things. Quoting directly, Thailand's top economic agency surprises analysts with higher than expected Q1 GDP growth, driven by a 24.8% rise in tourism. Think about that. 24.8%, that's almost a quarter rise, 4 times. Not 4 times, but a fourth up. That's big. Quoting further, and a 6.9% spike in consumer spending. However, the report warned of a manufacturing decline and potential Chinese product dumping. Quoting further, Thailand's top economic agency surprised the markets on Monday with a higher than expected GDP growth figure for the first quarter. Growth was 1.5%. Despite this, however, the details in the report make for disturbing reading. Again, the theme of this was good, okay? Now, I do get that there are some things going on vis-a-vis China, something of an economic slowdown. I think that's a lot of doom and gloom, fundamentally. Yes, China is sort of retooling her economy at the moment, if you will. But look, at the end of the day, the action is out here in East Asia. I mean, and you could probably argue the real action is primarily down here in Southeast Asia. But with China kind of retooling her thing and everybody else doing their thing, where we're really seeing some vibrancy in terms of economics is down here in Southeast Asia. Thailand, Vietnam, for example, even Malaysia and Indonesia getting in on it. A lot going on down here. Quoting further, in short, they point to a faltering manufacturing economy. At the same time, the Secretary General of the National Economic and Social Development Council specifically warned about the dumping of products in Thailand's market by China. Well, yeah, that's a problem. And if that is happening, I hope authorities will take measures to try to mitigate that. Quoting further, the figures showed growth driven by a 24.8% rise in foreign tourism from 2023. And bear in mind, our numbers were up exponentially from 2022. So to go up 0.25%, to go up by an order of magnitude of 25%, on top of that, these are great numbers. I'm so proud of Thailand. We really have turned this thing around, all of us. Despite what the media says, if there's anybody I'm maddest at of all out there in the ether of the world, truly the media, you probably number one with a bullet for me. Quoting further, the figures showed growth driven by a 24.8% rise in foreign tourism from 2023 and a consumer spending boom with an eye-popping 6.9% growth figure. Later on Monday, the Budget Office announced that the government was increasing its expenditure by 122 billion baht, bringing the annual 2024-2025 budget to 3.6 trillion. I like how they just mentioned that. That at 122 is the money, to my understanding, that's being earmarked for the so-called digital wallet. Now, wasn't the digital wallet supposed to be this thing that we were all in exigent need of because of this economic crisis? Well, where's the crisis? We're turning it around, and we're turning it around on our own without putting our country into a tremendous amount of debt in order to create a bunch of fake token money that doesn't really buy you anything but will surveil you and will take away all of your financial privacy. Where is this crisis that calls for this? Quoting further, massive splurge by consumers seen in the opening 3 months despite Bank of Thailand's curbs and a credit crunch. That's really important. That's really important. Bank credit has been contracting and Thailand's real economy has been driving this. It's not the financial economy. It's the economy I've been talking about on here for a while now that I know Thais themselves are the best at. When it comes to economic action, if you will, Thais are the best at the so-called informal economy, what I call the brick and mortar economy, the real stuff, the goods and services, the value creation economy. That's what's driving this, not bankers' funny money. Quoting further, reported spending was up by 6.9%. Quoting further, the reason for the discrepancy, according to the agency, was a significant boost in consumer spending. Indeed, the economic agency reported a 6.9% spurt in the first quarter. Spurt. I love the verbiage here. Now, this is a major increase. Quoting further, this came despite an intense credit crunch by the Bank of Thailand to rein in lending. So in spite of contraction of bank credit, Thailand's real economy it's hitting it out of the park. This is so good. This is so good. Quoting, however, it may have been driven by buoyant foreign tourist revenue. Now here's a question. Consumer spending goes up by a surprising 6.9%. What new product could be in the economy that would be primarily in the non-bank credit tabulated economy that would possibly increase consumer spending in a possible tourism context? Could it be that green plant that everybody's so concerned about at the moment? Could it be that? There has to be a cross-section of these million, what are we looking at here? How many millions of people? I think it was 37 odd, in the rest of the article they go into that. I think it was like 37 odd million tourists came into Thailand 2023, and you know, from that number we saw the numbers that we saw in quarter one 2024. Could those tourists possibly be here because, you know, they like to come to a jurisdiction where they don't get hassled around about using an herb for medicinal or recreational purposes that consenting adults can use in the privacy of their own home? Could some of those arrivals be from that? Inquiring minds want to know, you know. Look, at the end of the day, this is great news. And to my mind, it augurs against the very notion that there's any kind of economic crisis that requires this country to go into significant debt in order to double by 2 orders of magnitude the already existing liquidity in our banking system in order to create a giant financial grid of a surveillance tokenization that they call digital wallet, digital money, which just isn't money. It's not fungible the way money is fungible. You cannot buy anything you want with it. You cannot use it anywhere you want. And there seems to be a time limit associated with it. Again, is this anything that anyone would ever have considered money at any point in time prior to this one, which is occurring at this very moment? I've never heard of money like that. And again, does it require a massive infusion of debt, which is going to have to be paid off by the people here ultimately? Does it really require that? Is there really an economic crisis that warrants that kind of action?